I'm Amos, host of Undaunted, a proud member of the Gonna Geek Network, just like the show you're listening to now. The opinions expressed are those of each individual host. Check out all the other podcasts at GonnaGeekNetwork.com and get ready, because geekiness begins in 3, 2, 1.
You are listening to the Starling Tribune, a podcast dedicated to the Arrow TV show.
I am the Green Arrow.
This podcast is not produced or maintained by the CW, Warner Brothers Television, CTV, or DC Comics. All characters, situations, and stories are the properties of Time Warner. I am the Oracle, and this is your Tribune.
Welcome back to Earth 2's favorite newspaper, the Starling Tribune, owned by Felicity Smoke. I am the chief editor, SP, and your other reporters for this episode number 217 of the Starling Tribune are Chris.
My name is Oliver Queen.
We'll talk about that later. I had thought that was going to go the other way. And Michelle.
Do not hate on Bebo. He brings comfort to people of all ages.
I love how the entirety of these CW DC shows have been bringing in Bebo, including Arrow, Legends of Tomorrow, Flash. They all have Bebo. It's great. Hey, everybody, this podcast is recorded on Thursday, November 8th, 2018, live via www.geeks.live.
That's right, and this evening we'll be discussing the most recent episode of Arrow, as well as news, interviews, articles, and announcements that have dropped in the last week that could and very well will impact future episodes of Arrow, as well as the greater CW superhero universe. So that includes The Flash, Supergirl, Legends of Tomorrow, Black Lightning, and any other random things that they announce between now and the end of the show.
If you're new to the show, thank you for searching us out on the internet and joining us. After the show, you can check out our content at GonnaGeek.com, where you can also find other geeky videos, podcasts, and articles.
Now that we've got the intro out of the way, let's just go ahead and dive right into the current episode, and we'll start off with our award-winning reporter, Michelle, breaking down the episode for us.
This episode was called Level 2. It's Season 7, Episode 4. It aired Monday, November 5th, 2018. It was directed by Ben Hernandez-Bray. Credits include 3 Arrow, 2 Legends, 1 Supergirl, and 1 Lucifer. Written by Emilia Ortega-Aldrich. Credits include 13 episodes of Arrow. And Tanya Kong. Credits include being the story editor of 13 episodes of Daredevil and writing one of them. And being the story editor in 4 episodes of Arrow and writing this one.
It seems to be a good cast of production level people. Chris, what do you think about that?
I'm on board. Sounds solid to me.
All right. Well, we'll go down the ratings for the week for the CW DC comic book shows. There's only 3 this week because there was a little thing in the United States called an election that was on a Tuesday night. So we're without 2 of the shows, Flash and Black Lightning. So the rest of the shows did have new episodes. Supergirl had their 4th episode of the 4th season called Asthma, I think. Was it Asthma? Help me out with the pronunciation there, Michelle.
Ahisma.
Ahisma. Okay, there you go. And it had a live rating of 1.23. And then on Monday, the 5th of November, Arrow had this episode of Level 2 with a live rating of 1.08, which was above 1. That's good. And on the right directly following it, on the 5th of November, Legends of Tomorrow had the 3rd episode of the 4th season, Dancing Queens, which was a great episode. Michelle and I both loved it very much. And it only had a live rating of 0.86. But don't despair. Don't despair. Michelle, you have gone out and you have captured, and we've been talking about it for quite some time, the live plus 7-day DVR numbers. So do you want to go back and forth on these?
Sure.
Why don't you start?
Well, with Supergirl, episode 1 live was 1.52. When you add in the DVR, it goes up to 2.66. Episode 2 live was 1.34. Add in the DVR, it goes to 2.83. Episode 3 live, 1.28. Add in the DVR, we got 2.21.
Those ratings on the Live Plus 7 are indeed impressive. What do you think, Chris?
Solid. That's what they need, because Sunday night's a tough time slot.
It is. It is. So glad to see the DVR numbers. Now, these are not including any plays that might have come from the CW app or the CW website, and those numbers have never been out there. But if CW wants to ever give those to us here at the Starling Tribune, we would be appreciated, and we would talk about them appropriately. Now, Arrow had its episode 1 live rating of 1.43. The Live Plus 7 DVR brought that up to 2.35. The episode 2, which is the last one that we have data on, had a live rating of 1.18 and a Live Plus 7-day DVR rating of 2.03. Those are both over 2s, and I have to say I'm very glad, because we were talking about that 1 million bump for each show. We are seeing it there, so that is good. Arrow is still retaining its 7-day audience. Michelle, what do we have for Legends of Tomorrow?
We only have data on the first episode. The first episode live was 1 million. Add in the DVR, we got 2.03.
Again, with that 1 million increase over 7 days, so that's pretty good. Now, Flash, we have data for the first 3 episodes. The first episode had a live rating of 2.08, but the Live Plus 7-day DVR number was 3.80. That's awesome. Michelle, what about the second episode?
Yeah, live was 1.69. Add in the DVR, it jumps to 3.26.
And then the final episode that we're going to talk about, the third episode of Flash, got a live rating of 1.87 with a Live Plus 7-day DVR rating of 3.39. That is awesome. That is well above 3. You're climbing up to almost 4 with the first episode. Flash is indeed here to stay. And I got to say, I think the audience loves Nora. Chris, what do you think just about those ratings?
Numbers are great. I wish I could speak to the show, but I haven't started Flash yet this season. I've heard good things, and based off the ratings, it seems like people are excited. So all good signs to someone like me.
Yeah, we won't get into details. I'll just say I, too, have been liking Nora. Michelle, have you been liking The Flash so far this season?
Yes, I do like Nora, but I also like how we're getting Caitlin and Cisco back into things. We're delving into Caitlin's past. There's things about with her father. So we're actually getting a Caitlin storyline that doesn't involve a boyfriend.
No, and the elongated man is actually doing okay this year. And then Tom, what's his name? Tom Cavanaugh? Tom Cavanaugh, Ed himself. Yeah, back to the bowling alley lawyer, Ed. He is having a ton of fun. You could just tell on the screen, every single scene he's in, he's just having fun doing it. So if you haven't picked up The Flash yet this year, I'm hot and cold on The Flash. This is a hot time for me on The Flash. So all good there. And I'm very grateful to see the ratings the way they are across the board for all the shows. It gives me a hope that there will be renewals when these series come up for it, maybe later this year. In the past couple of years, has been renewed in like the January, early spring time frame. So we won't hear anything about it until the new year. That's my guess. All right, Michelle, let's dive out the deep end and let's talk level 2.
Yeah, this episode we see Oliver sent to level 2 of the prison. And it's not exactly a pleasant place. He starts in this room with this buzzing noise and flashing lights. And we are introduced to Dr. Jarrett Parker, the chief psychiatrist. And I broke these down into rounds each time he met the doctor, because things progress within each round. And Chris, your quote was like, "I am Oliver Queen." And that's what he's like in the beginning, like in round 1, right?
Yeah, kind of like, you should know who I am. I was part of me kind of hoped he went, "I'm the Green Arrow," just because I wanted that.
Yes.
I knew it wasn't going to happen, but it would be a great line. And I think that's what they're setting us up for at some point before he leaves the prison. If these mind games continue, for him to drop the line of, "I'm the Green Arrow." And like,
I didn't
punch a
think
dude in
about
the face.
waiting until he left prison, but I could totally get that now. I was expecting it at the end of the episode. I was not expecting what he said at the end of the episode.
I kind of was, but we'll get to some theories on that as we get further into the discussion. But I like that Oliver's kind of resistant, because Oliver's been tortured. He's had mind games played with him. This is no big deal. He's locked in a cell with annoying buzzing flashing lights. Okay, that's fine. Now on a side note, with the surround sound in my living room on that episode, whenever the lights were buzzing, it drove me nuts. Absolutely nuts.
Yes, you're talking about psychological warfare. I mean, this goes back. You remember Manuel Noriega when we were surrounding his Panama compound and we blared music at it, loud rock music, and then
Black
ballet
Sabbath
music.
and stuff.
Yeah, all that sort of stuff. Yeah, this is the sort of thing that you do to somebody to get them off balance. Oliver knew he was heading into more difficult times when he went to level 2. He wanted to get to level 2, and he was trying to explain it to the psychologist to begin with. He was actually pretty open with the psychologist, which I guess in his position, he really had nothing to lose. But then again, we've discussed last time how we don't think Oliver is really playing out how he should be in the prison, that he shouldn't be trusting anybody. And this is another example where he's trusting the psychologist to begin with. The psychologist just goes to town on him. But what I wanted to point out was I think Oliver, when he transitioned into I'm not trusting this guy, he's been through mind games before. I'm thinking we're seeing him play along like he is actually being controlled, and he's not. He's actually keeping his mind with him. And that is the Oliver Queen we've known over the past 6 seasons. And I'm trusting that's where we are now. If they really did break him, that's totally out of character.
I think you're 100% right, SP. I think the drug-induced hallucination he has of himself and William on the boat instead of his father and Oliver on the boat, like we saw at the very beginning of the show, that didn't break his resolve. That made him resolve that, hey, I need to get out of here for my son, and I need to protect my son because Diaz is still trying to kill him and Felicity. And I think that hardened his resolve to do whatever it takes to get into level 2 and find the demon and knock some sense into him and get some answers or whatnot. So I don't think this is a broken Oliver. I think it's an Oliver playing possum. And I think they're playing with our expectations.
I thought it was a very interesting way to go back to the beginning and do a flashback as therapy. And it's really interesting how this doctor kind of makes sense with your father passed your sins on to you. He gave you the list. He told you to right his wrongs. He dictated to you what you should do with your life. And that it started a cycle, that it was unfair to Oliver. And that's kind of a good point.
Yeah, but I get the point, but I don't know that I trust what the doctor is trying to do, because part of me is sitting here going, is he truly a medical professional in this prison that's trying to help people? Or is he another Diaz paid person who's there just to screw with Oliver's life and eventually put him in a position to kill him? Maybe I'm just too cynical.
He's using some very unconventional approaches here, and he's not trusting Oliver at all. And I would think in any normal therapy session, it would be longer drawn out and you would establish trust over time. And then maybe you would resort to these things, but not straight out of the bat. So I think that this is not a guy to be trusted. It's an enemy as far as I'm concerned.
I mean, there's ethics to be brought into play here by, like, he tries to interrogate and have a questioning in a moment with Oliver to try and figure him out. After the first one fails, he's like, well, shoot him up with the drugs. And like, and drugging him out of nowhere and continually increasing doses, and then pulling out a specialized electroshock device meant to trigger memories. I mean, from a do no harm perspective of a doctor, I'm not really sure he's doing no harm.
Oh, I know he's shady. I just thought he had a good point, but I know he wanted to break Oliver's will when he came in and Oliver said, good morning. It's round 2 where Oliver actually says first good morning, and then the doctor's kind of thrown off a little bit. It's like, you are able to like keep track of time even with these noises and the flashing lights, and this meditation. Where did you learn it? That's when I figured out he wants to break Oliver.
Right, and Oliver's a different breed of the traditional criminals this guy's probably worked with. Because remember, we've talked about it throughout the multiple seasons of this. For lack of a better term, Oliver's kind of a Superman when it comes to learning different skills, learning meditation, learning how to shoot the bow, learning martial arts. he's very quick to learn things and is very good with them. So he's got a mindset that's probably different than your traditional prisoner that comes in there that can be manipulated. So I enjoyed it. Part of me, though, at the very beginning of this was thinking, is the Doctor want to fix him because he works for Diaz or because he wants to make a name for himself? Be like, I'm the one that fixed the Green Arrow. I found out his issues and I brought him back to normal. And when we got to the end of the episode, I leaned more towards paid by Diaz. But at the very beginning, I was like, maybe he's trying to use Oliver to make a name for himself. I'm not sure.
Or maybe control him to be able to have his own little warrior. You never know. It might not be Diaz. He might be the demon himself. We really don't know.
Good point.
Dr. Parker is played by Jason Kelly. And I just wanted to point out, I think Jason is doing an excellent job playing this character. We don't know a lot about this character right now, but I think in this episode, he came off as a formidable opponent to Oliver, and he handled everything well. So bravo to the new showrunner of Arrow, Beth, for bringing on an actor of the caliber of Jason Kelly to pull this off.
So, Chris, you said you were surprised by how the episode ended, what Oliver said who he was.
Right. I was kind of hoping that Oliver was going to say he was the Green Arrow as part of Resistance, but he ends it with basically saying, "Evening, I'm inmate 4587." I mean,
right.
He folds, and we talked about at the top of this segment getting into it. I think, at least I personally think he's playing him. I don't think Oliver is truly broken.
I was completely surprised by the inmate 4587. I totally forgot about inmate 4587 until at the very end. So bad on me. I should have remembered that, but it did surprise me. So well done. And I did not know that that's where the Doctor wanted to go. Why he kept on asking his name. He never actually stated, "You are inmate 4587. It was just, "I'm Oliver Queen," and then the questions. So it was very perceptive on Oliver's part to pick up the fact that the guy wanted him to cut down to him and basically say he was an inmate and not Oliver Queen.
So this reminded me a lot of, what's the name of the episode of Chain of Command, the Star Trek The Next Generation episode where Captain Picard gets captured behind Cardassian lines, and he's there being interrogated, and they're continually trying to break him, finding different ways to try and twist with his emotions, make him think he's been abandoned. And one of the things they keep doing is showing the lights behind the Cardassian interrogator, and he's saying, "Just tell me there's 3 lights, and I'll let you go." And it just reminded me very much of Jean-Luc Picard going, "There are 4 lights," and just standing by that every time, even at the end, as the guy tries to break him one last time. And the difference we have here is Picard never broke, and I think Oliver fake broke to try and move his plan along. But it reminded me, these interrogations, very much of Chain of Command Part 2.
Did you say 3 lights, Chris? I think you said 3 lights.
No, I said 4 lights.
Right.
There
are 4 lights.
But he wanted him to say 5 lights.
I thought it was 3.
Not 3.
Okay. It might have been 5. It could have been 3. I don't remember. But I know that the line, because it became an internet meme, and I remember it just strongly from growing up, is him struggling to stand after torture and going, "There are 4 lights," as he staggers off.
I will agree with the 4 lights, but I thought he wanted to say 5. By the way, that episode is very controversial because it had Ronnie Cox playing the Captain Edward Jellicoe that came in, and I love Ronnie Cox. He's great, and he kind of played a hard ass, basically. We'll just call it. I actually liked the way he came in and took over the ship. Obviously, Jonathan Frakes playing Commander Riker did not, and that was the strife between the crew and the captain. So a very good 2-part episode. Once again, the Star Trek The Next Generation Chain of Command, and this was 1992, so it was like season 4, I believe, or 5, one of the two.
See, I just had the tab open here.
I believe it started in 87, right? So 87, 88, 89, 90, 91, 92. Wow, season 6, I was off.
Season 6, episodes 10 and 11. Original air date December 14th, 1992, and December 21st, 1992. Classic episodes, really. If you're a Star Trek fan and you're working your way through things, you can skip ahead to this one at some point. Don't forget to watch this episode if you're just cherry picking or something like that.
It is a must-see.
Well, someone who almost really broke to the dark side, and that's Felicity. As last episode ended, we saw she captured Silencer, and she's trying to get information out of her, and she's trying different ways. SP, you have been very vocal of Felicity. What do you think of her, actions in this episode?
Well, first of all, she goes to Laurel for help, and I think that's a bad thing all the way around. Although she is desperate, no, she's not getting the help from anybody else. So she goes to Laurel to ask for help, and she says, hypothetically, let's say that somebody has captured somebody that has the ability to be silent around them, and what would you do with that information, so to speak? And Laura's like, this is surprising. Okay, well, let's see. My issue with that is Laurel herself backed off with the interrogation and did not want to kill Silencer. I wouldn't think Laurel would have any issue with that. It would be one less person for Diaz to throw at her.
I don't think it was an issue of morality there. I think it was more of an issue of, if she dies, we have nothing that we can get. At least that was the impression I got there, is that it wasn't, oh, I'm squeamish and don't want to kill someone. It was more of, she dies, we have no chance to do anything.
Well, we get that moment. Again, I signaled that we're getting the Laurel Earth 2 redemption arc, and there's more evidence here where she talks to Felicity about her Earth 2, how she had her father and her Oliver in her life, but then they got murdered, and then she got angry and she wanted revenge, and she got revenge, and she crossed that line, and she just kept going further and further into darkness, and she didn't want Felicity to go down that road. She actually says to Felicity, I wish I had somebody to give me this talk. And she's, Felicity, you need to use your big brain. There has to be a different way to do this. Again, redemption arc.
Yeah, I'm not entirely too comfortable with it. I mean, okay, great for the actor. It's been a hard road. Really has, because Katie Cassidy was not well loved from the beginning, and then was forced off the show through a death, and then it really wasn't fair, but it was the way the show was written and everything. So she has come back, and I think as the Laurel Lance from Earth 2, she's done quite a lot better with the character, the story arc given to her, and her ability to actually pull it off. Okay, let's put that aside and talk about the redemption arc. The character as it stands, it's very hard for me to believe that there is even a redemption arc, because she came in killing left, right, and backwards. And now for her to be the DA for Star City, somehow pulling off the fact that she's a lawyer and she's never been to law school a day in her life. I mean, it's hard to fathom where they've taken this character, and we're just supposed to accept it this season. Okay, I guess we'll have to. But her interaction with Felicity, especially with Felicity going the way that she is this season, she did use her smarts and say, okay, we're not going to get anything from her, so let's just release her. Laurel didn't think of that. And that's my issue, is that Laurel is never a long game person. She says she is right now, and because plot, I guess, for this episode, but that was the right thing to do, to let Silencer go if they wanted to find Diaz. The other option is to take a pawn, a bishop, a knight off the board. It could have 50-50, half dozen of one, sixth of the other. Now we're going to get to know where she goes. I'm going to assume that the tracker works, because if the tracker doesn't work, this whole episode was meaningless as far as Felicity and Laurel goes.
I'm not quite sure how it's going to work, considering it's RFID and the range of RFID is minuscule. But hey, that's neither here nor there. It sounded great on paper to throw those buzzwords around.
Yeah, it brings up a good point, because I've actually had the whole family in the tile architecture right now so they can find their keys. You put this little square thing on your keys and you pair it up with your phone. And if you're within, I want to say 300 feet, if you're within 300 feet, you're supposed to be able to get some information back and forth. So you can locate the keys can locate the phone, that sort of thing. But it's 300 feet. It's not a city across.
Sorry, I was just nitpicking right there.
No problem. I mean, that's true. Again, technobabble. It sounds good. It makes her sound smart. After all, she got into MIT with the acceptance rate of 6.7%.
I wonder if it's truly 6.7. I bet it's actually lower, but we'll just go with that.
Well, another team up that happens is Renee and Dinah, kind of. There's fires happening in the glades. First happens at the town hall, and the fake Green Arrow shows up and rescues Zoe. And of course, that brings to head Renee and Dinah going against, because Renee's all like, you know, this arrow's good, and Dinah's all like, but our immunity deal. I thought it was interesting how it played out. I was almost afraid that we were going to get another like Civil War thing like we got last season. But instead, I love how Renee calls in Diggle. And Diggle brings up Quentin Lance.
Yes, I love that too.
Who else is Renee going to call, though? He can't call anybody else. Quentin's gone. Oliver is in prison. And Curtis is basically estranged working for Argus. If I'm going to call between Curtis and Diggle, I'm calling Diggle.
Well, Diggle is the second choice.
Yeah, he said Felicity didn't answer, but bringing in Diggle, you know, Chris, what did you think of that conversation Diggle had with Dinah?
So the conversation Diggle had with Dinah, where he basically said, you know, Quentin Lance was a good cop. He always wanted to help people, but he was willing to bend things, in some case, work with the vigilante Hood, Arrow / whatever, to get things done. That's exactly what I was thinking. When Dinah arrests Renee, I was like, hold on a second. This is something that Quentin in season 1 or 2 would have grumbled about wanting to do with the Hood, but he wouldn't have done it because he knew the Hood was helping him accomplish things.
I don't know about that, because he was going after the Hood season 1. He arrested him twice.
He arrested Oliver Queen at one point and accused him of it, but he had a turning point, though, where he came to the same realization that is, if I let them do what they're doing, it's more gain than loss.
Yes.
Yeah. So,
eventually.
And you would think that Dinah, having been on the other side of that, might have a bit of an understanding of it, but perhaps she's just overreacting because she has been on that other side and doesn't want to lose the immunity that everyone's been given. But I love how Diggle was able to do a call back to Quentin Lance and kind of put you in the right mindset to be like, yeah, you're not the only one that's been in this position, Dinah. Quentin Lance had to deal with it for quite a while. And he took a different approach that you might want to consider. It was very well played by David Ramsey.
SP, did you end up liking how Dinah and Renee solved their situation? I mean, they had that fight at the theater, that last incident. I thought that was a really interesting set of events.
Yeah, the action there at the theater at the end was pretty cool. But don't forget, it was also intertwined with the flash forward. So we kind of see where this whole thing leads Dinah eventually. Now, I don't know if Dinah doing this directly contributes to what's going to happen in the future, but she is obviously personally affected by it. And I can't help but thinking maybe it's a mistake for her to go down this path right now. However, what else is she supposed to do? She says it herself. She's got a department that's been gutted by the events. She mentions the last year, but the last 6 years, let's be honest, the police department, it's just been gutted. And nobody would want to work there. We've been through this before because everybody ends up getting killed or turned or something like that. So she has been dealing with bringing the remnants back together. She's dealing with a population that has deep concerns, and she can't give them any great answers. All she can say is we're working on it with our limited resources. Well, if I'm a city and I'm a strong citizen of Star City, I am going to look at that going, well, you're just not going to be able to help me. So I'm going to help myself. And maybe that's how the walls go up around the glades. I don't know. So when it comes to her teaming up with Renee, I'm a little non-committal about it right now because we are seeing glimpses of the future. Maybe I would be all for it if I didn't see those flash forwards, but we have. So like, I don't know if this is the right thing right now or not.
Yeah, because that does bring us to the flash forwards. That's what I want to talk about that last. I've always been iffy about flash forwards, about like what they reveal, and then if it ruins the current storyline. It's always a very delicate balance. I thought it was interesting when Dinah gives Zoe the canary pin, and then we see how that plays out. But when we go to the flash forward, William and Roy have finally made it to Star City, which has seen better days. Makes me think of Star City 2046 a lot.
Sure looks like it, doesn't it?
Yeah, and they end up in Smoke Industries. Right, Chris?
They do, and it's pretty wrecked. It's seen better days.
And then, of course, William just notices the thing in the wall, right, SP?
Well, of course, he's a tech genius. He, is the quote-unquote son of Felicity, which is not technically true. He's not Felicity's biological kid that would have to go to Anna Hopkins, which I wish could come back to the show, but it's not going to. Anyway, he's a smart guy. Felicity has encouraged him to be tech-minded, so she's leaving little trails for him to pick up on and discover along the way here. And that's another thing that we need to talk about at some point in time. Between Oliver's interrogation and what's going on with Felicity, there could be a reason why they've abdicated around William. I mean, the story is that Felicity is dead. I don't actually believe that. I don't think Felicity is dead. I think she's underground somewhere.
Comic book logic applies. If I don't see a body, I don't believe they're dead.
But here's the thing. Dinah says Felicity Smoke is dead. She didn't say Felicity Queen. She didn't say Overwatch. I think saying Felicity's full name is a clue.
Yeah, that could be. I just think it's a misdirect. I think we're going to get a few episodes down the line and she's going to show up, or her voice will be on there, some kind of internet message, something like that. It seems too convenient that this quest for clues is out there, but Felicity's dead. I don't buy it.
I agree with Chris. We'll see what happens here. And this is not a thing that we'll know by the crossover, right? Because this is the flash forward. This could be changed in 2019 when the episodes come out in January, February timeframe. So this is a long burn mystery, I think. And we'll see it manifests itself in the later part of the season, which I love. I'm loving this season so far. It goes right back to season 1 and season 2. And yes, there are direct elements of season 1 that are in here, like the whole shipwreck stuff that happened in the interrogation. But just the way it's panning out right now, you have no idea who the false Green Arrow is. You have no idea what's going on in the future. And you don't even know if it's Earth 1. This could be a different Earth. You don't know what year it is. You know nothing other than it's sometime in the future because you have older William and Zoe. But this is great. I'm loving this. We have no idea where the show is going. And it could just try to be wrapped up by the end of the season, or it could be leading to something else. This is just fun to watch this year.
Yeah, it is 20 years into the future. I mean, do we want to take a guess? Like, is this Earth 2? Is this the road to 2046?
But
is this the darkest timeline?
Oliver's dead in Earth 2, isn't he?
Yes.
Yeah, so I don't think it's Earth 2. I think there's potential for it to be an alternate Earth of some kind. But the way the Legends of Broken Time, I think it just could be a broken timeline off. I'm not sure. I don't know. There's so many potential things they could do with time travel in this, that Legends of Tomorrow's opened up, how everything can get twisted. I'm not sure the future Star City we see now will still be the future by the time season 7 wraps.
I know this could all be just a one season what if, basically, and that's great too. And don't forget, you have speedsters over in the Flash that are literally screwing around with time right now. So it could be another Flashpoint like thing that Barry and Nora are dealing with.
Yes, because if you have been watching The Flash, you realize that Nora has actually changed things, because the cicada that was supposed to be in the original timeline isn't. So she has been messing things up. Anyway, I do like how it's dark and interesting. There's a vigilante resistance. Zoe's a part of it. That's fantastic. So as long as it doesn't spoil the current storyline, I'll be fine with the flash forwards.
I think they're using the flash forwards to build part of our stuff in the present day, because maybe it's a coincidence, maybe it's not, but Dinah gives the pin to Zoe in the present day, and now we have future Black Canary that's introduced. Oh yeah, and the new Green Arrow has to save Zoe from dying from smoke inhalation and fire, which has me going, I wonder if they're going the route that, assuming one theory is correct, that future Green Arrow is in fact William Clayton. He has to save her, is in the future she helps train him with Dinah to be the Green Arrow, so if he doesn't go back to the past and save her, then he never gets trained in the future. So we're talking like Terminator style time travel and implications for how temporal history gets changed. So maybe I'm reading way much too into it, or maybe I just want some convoluted weird time travel thing, but I just think it's awful convenient that they've been focusing and bringing Zoe in a lot more this season. She gets some pretty prime time inclusion in this week's episode, and then her future iteration gets introduced. So maybe I'm reading into the tea leaves way too much.
I don't think so.
I don't think you're going to be happy unless Renee ends up in a vat of molten metal and he does a thumbs up and says Hoss.
You know, I'm a big fan of Renee so far this season. Just as a side note, they have done a pretty good job of getting him back in my good graces.
I know. I am conflicted a little bit of Renee right now too, because he's a little bit too much of vigilante. I got to do this. I got to do this. And yes, I get he's got to protect his daughter, and that gives him one heck of a motivation. So they're selling it. I'm not 100% buying it, but I don't know. I'll just say somewhere between 60 and 70% buying it, which is more than 50% right now. So we'll see where it goes.
Chris, is there anything else you want to talk about?
Like we mentioned, I'm liking how Renee is going this week, especially the fact that he's tried to talk Felicity down off the ledge of torturing. He goes, I've done that. It was a bad decision. I still have memories of it. And I paid the price for doing that by getting tortured myself. You don't want to do it. And I thought that was a nice callback, but also kind of helps you understand his mentality of why he might be like, hey, don't. Poor decision. And I don't know. I like where they're going with Renee. He's much more relatable now versus just seemingly super obstinate like he was last season. Maybe he was on like Monkey Gas or something to steal a community parallel.
SP, anything you want to talk about?
Yeah, two quick things. First of all, let's look at what we know about the fake Green Arrow. Using a voice modulator, and I was looking at the movements as the Green Arrow was scaling up the building. Some of those movements looked a little feminine to me. Now, could it just been how the movements were? But I'm not 100% that the fake Green Arrow is a guy.
It could either.
Yeah. So there's that.
Going on the fake Green Arrow thing, though, what I was trying to do is, since we got glimpses of folks in the future and we finally had fake Green Arrow standing next to some of our main characters, I was trying to compare heights to get an idea of who it might be based off of heights. And fake Green Arrow is not much taller than Renee from what it seemed like, and potentially shorter than Dinah. We never really got a great side-by-side on them. We kind of got a camera that panned back and forth. But I kind of want to go back and rewatch and try and like grab some still frames of like fake Green Arrow in the past and then William in the future standing next to Dinah and Zoe to try and get an idea of, is there a twist here? Or can we look at Dinah in the future and Dinah in the past and then compare her to William and New Green Arrow and determine whether, based off of size of the same person? Probably not, as I think about it, because it's probably a stunt person underneath the mask.
Right. You know, it could be anybody. Damn, and they could be misleading with the size too. But because of that, I was thinking possibly one of the Al Ghul daughters or Thea. So who knows what's going to be? And I realize that Thea's character is probably not going to come back, but it could. Who knows? Could be. You don't know. So fake Green Arrow, that was one thing. The other thing, I don't know why it sticks out in my mind, but Felicity was using a rusty screwdriver. So was her plan to give the silencer some form of tetanus?
That's exactly what I was thinking. So you got to get those, 20 shots in your stomach?
Yeah, right. Directly where the rust has been entered into your body. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, maybe we'll learn more about the fake Green Arrow next week in the episode called The Demon. It's season 7, episode 5. It will air Monday, November 12th, 2018. Felicity learns something new about Oliver that shocks her. Meanwhile, Diggle asks Curtis to go undercover for Argus. Dinah works with an unlikely ally. Directed by Mark Bunting, written by Benjamin Rabb and Derek A. Hughes.
Live from the Starling Tribune main news desk on floor 52 of the Starling Tribune Tower, it's the weekly news roundup with award-winning news anchor Michelle Ely. And now, Michelle Ely.
Thanks, SP. I have a little crossover news, and I'm bringing it up because I think it's fascinating. As we know, the Arrowverse shows are filmed in Vancouver. Well, for Gotham, they actually took production to Chicago, which is it's really interesting that they're like, Vancouver, there's nowhere here in Vancouver that's good enough for our Gotham. We're actually going to spend money and go to Chicago to give our Gotham a unique look.
Well, I think this is very obvious. I think this is pointing out that the award-winning verified producer Cody Gaw is actually the fake Green Arrow, and they needed to go to him because he's so busy with his successful award-winning podcast. And they need it. By the way, Cody Gaw is also a GonnaGeek.com network podcaster on Game Life Balance US.
You'd better keep the hood up because Cody's hair is pretty distinctive.
There is a lot of hair gel involved.
I mean, going back to the fact they went to Chicago, I like it because a lot of folks may not know that The Dark Knight, the second of the Nolan Batman movies, and I believe also Batman Begins, a lot of the Gotham locations were Chicago and downtown Chicago. The Dark Knight Rises, however, was in Pittsburgh. So there were some slight differences there, but like Wayne Tower is a building in downtown Chicago, for instance. So I like the precedent they're doing there. And it's also kind of a callback to, hey, Christopher Nolan built a pretty cool Gotham City. Maybe we can hook into that and get some nostalgia, or just have people go, hey, this looks really cool. I feel like I've seen it before. But Gotham is Chicago. Kudos. Well done.
And another piece of crossover, well, it's actually post-crossover news, isn't it, Chris?
It is. Stephen Amell got what he's calling the perfect gift from the Flash wardrobe department at the end. We all know Stephen Amell is the Flash in the Elseworld stuff. In a photo he shared to Twitter, he revealed that he was given a very special t-shirt, poking a little bit of fun at the fact he wore the Flash's speedster suit. As you can see in the photo, it reads, "My name is Stephen Amell, and I have survived the tightest suit alive." The sentiment is a clever play on the opening of each episode of The Flash, in which Barry Allen declares himself to be the fastest man alive. And that just kind of tickled me a little bit, because we all kind of pointed out that Stephen Amell really does not have a runner's body build. When you look at him, you don't think like super fast sprinter. You think, I'm going to kick your ass because he's huge.
Yeah, this suit is not going to end up in the back of Cisco's closet, because nobody in National City is going to be, or not National City. Where are they? Central City. Nobody in Central City is going to be able to fit into that suit. It's going to be a tent on anybody in that show.
And that is all for the news. We are part of a larger podcasting network, aren't we, Chris?
That's right, Michelle. We're part of the Gonna Geek Network. We kind of teased it by talking about Cody Goff, who's one of the hosts of Game Life Balance US, which is one of the 25 plus shows on the network. We can't tell you about every show, but we can say you should probably go check some of them out. You can go to GonnaGeek.com, click on the network button, and see them all. But we can also give you a taste of a show you might want to watch. And we told you about Game Life Balance US, but this time we want to tell you about Game Life Balance Australia, the sister podcast to Game Life Balance US, specifically episode 71 entitled The Adventures of Peppers the Wonder Horse. It's a good one. I love their titles. Red Dead Redemption 2 is out, and it's all that Rob can think about. But before the boys take a deep dive into discussing that hot new release, they need to discuss the Vectrex, our featured console for this episode. So slap on your colored overlay, let the gentle buzz of the speakers wash over you, and don't worry about the difference between vectors and pixels, because it's too hard to explain, and your lovable hosts are too dumb to grasp it anyways. So go check out Game Life Balance Australia, learn about the Vectrex, and then you can hear them gush a little bit about Red Dead Redemption 2, which by all accounts is a fantastic game that I have not yet had a chance to play, but I'm super intrigued. Game Life Balance Australia over at GonnaGeek.com.
I knew we were into trouble when we got a couple of Australians on board on the network.
Yeah. There's no mates in there, though. I was afraid I was going to have to say mate and try and do an Australian accent, and that's not in my repertoire accents.
You're not going to put another shrimp on the Barbie?
No. I don't do accents
Which
very well.
I think is technically incorrect, but anyway.
Regardless, it is what it is. And it is time for us to start wrapping up the show right now. So a giant thank you to all of the live listeners who participated over at geeks.live and were in the chat room. But also a thank you to all of you who download the audio version of the show over at starlingtribune.com or catch the video replay over at youtube.com/GonnaGeek.
If you happen to have an Amazon home device, you can enable our podcast as a skill. All you have to do is say a word or whatever the activation word is, enable the Starling Tribune, and you will be able to have full player control of our show. Also, we now have a Discord server, which has been very fun throughout the week in all of our shows and all of our general topics as well. You can find that at GonnaGeek.com/Discord and join in all the fun every day and connect with your favorite podcast hosts as well as fellow listeners. And remember, you can always catch us live as we record at www.geeks.live at 7:30 p.m. Eastern or 4:30 p.m. Pacific on Thursdays.
We would love to hear from you. We are the Starling Tribune on Facebook and Instagram, at Starling Tribune on Twitter, and you can call us at 612-888-CAVE. That's 612-888-2283. Well, this brings us to the end of another great episode. Any last words before we sign off? At Stargate Pioneer.
Hashtag Rusty Screwdriver.
At the Chris Farrell.
Hashtag more Bebo.
And I am at Michelle Ely signing off with hashtag. And I am at Michelle Ely signing off with hashtag Cube Within a Cube. Oracle, I think we're done here.
This was the Starling Tribune. You can leave us feedback at GonnaGeek.com or check out our archive at StarlingTribune.com. Visit GonnaGeek.com for more podcasts. Music by Kevin MacLeod can be found at Incompetech.com. This podcast is not produced or maintained by the CW, Warner Brothers Television, CTV, or DC Comics. All characters, stories, and situations are the property of Time Warner. No infringement is intended. We will see you for the next episode of CW's Arrow.
Cube within a cube. So William, who's probably never seen a Rubik's Cube before in his life, actually gets to solve the thing in what, 30 seconds?
About that, yeah.
So jealous.
He's probably seen a Rubik's Cube. They're still around.
I know,
now.
Well, I mean, 20 years from now, in a dystopian type future, I don't know if they're there or not.
But she put one in a bag and put it in the thingy. So he
hermetically sealed.
Right.
I don't know. Just giving the kid props. He's solving a Rubik's Cube, and he probably never had in his life.
And he got the right cubes within the cube.
Yeah, that how did he discover which colors went where? Chris, how can you explain that?
Hell if I know. I can't do a Rubik's Cube.
Yeah, I know. First of all, doing a Rubik's Cube is hard enough. And then, yeah, you're absolutely right. And he set it down like he knew what he was doing, and it had all the right colors. So I don't know.
They had contests at work with some folks I used to work with that was scramble the Rubik's Cube and give it to someone, and they'd write their times on the board to see who could do the quickest that week. And some of those guys were down like 40 seconds. And I was like, how the hell are you doing this in 40 seconds? I don't understand. It makes my head hurt. Are you like taking the stickers off and just putting them back on and cheating? I don't get it.
Actually, that's how I can solve a Rubik's Cube in like 10 minutes. I know how to take a screwdriver, a flathead screwdriver, and pop it all up and then like put it right back together. Boom, boom, boom. Look, it's solved.
Is that a rusty screwdriver? Maybe she had the rusty screwdriver in the safe with the Rubik's Cube.
No, I'm smart enough to know not to use a rusty screwdriver.
Okay. All right. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everyone, and we will see you all next week. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.